the very first thing I did, one of the guys in the barracks that was in the same little area of the barracks that I was in was my best buddy, and he was from New York, and he had a subscription to the Village Voice, which back in those days, kind of like the Seattle Weekly or whatever, except that they were called underground papers in those days, and the Village Voice was clearly not an underground paper, as I think back on it. But on the other hand, it was certainly hipper than I had ever been exposed to, and there was an ad in the Village Voice for this group that was called Individuals Against the Crimes of Silence, and the concept was that you can't be witness to something bad and not intervene, otherwise you're guilty of inaction. And so these were people who were, you'd sign your name onto the roster and say, it's kind of like in modern days, we have the Not in Our Name campaign where people say, not in my name are you waging war on Iraq or whatever. Well, this was kind of the precursor to that back in the 60s, and it was the Individuals Against the Crimes of Silence, and you would sign a thing and send your little ticket in, and then they'd add your name to those who were taking a stand against the war. And so I signed the thing and said, I'm an individual against the crime of silence, and I've got to take a stand. And so I sent in my thing, and they sent me back a great big envelope full of their leaflets and literature and whatever, and all about it. Which medics at Fort Lewis at Madigan General Hospital there, the medics would eat in the cafeteria, in the hospital cafeteria, and we would get our mail. There was a little mail room with little individual mailboxes, kind of like you have at a post office or something. And it's kind of unlike an army situation to some degree. It was more like almost like real life. Well, at any rate, and so I went one day at lunch and opened up to see if I had any mail, and I had mail in my box, and it was this package from the Individuals Against the Crimes of Silence. And so I went in and sat down in the cafeteria with my buddies and started eating my food, and I opened up my thing, and it's like, oh wow, look at this, and I passed it down the table, so my buddies can, everybody's talking about whatever, how you are at lunch, you're just shooting shit, and so I passed the thing down, and everybody's, oh wow, and they're checking it out and talking about it and whatever, and the next thing I knew, I was called into the commander's office. He says, you were distributing literature on base in uniform. What are you talking about? I didn't even know there was such a concept as distributing literature. And I didn't know there was any rules about it. It was America, right? And I was so naive that it just didn't even occur to me that anybody would be offended by that, even if I had stood in a public way and passed out flyers, in the more traditional way, much less just the idle thing of passing it down to the guy who's sitting next to me at the lunch table, having just received it in the mail. And he says, those are communists, don't you know? And I was a conservative, and I was young and dumb, but, it was the 60s, and so everybody had a little hint of rebellion in them, and I thought, I don't really think these are communists, And I said, if they're communists, I'd like to know that that's the truth, because, I'd be against that, but I don't think they are. And of course, he was quite offended that I would even disagree with him on this question, and he was full of shit. I'm sure they weren't communists, or maybe they were. Who knows? But I'm sure it was some good liberal church folks that had done this thing. Well, at any rate, who knows? But the point is that he said, we're going to have to, and I think even he realized that I was so dumb that I didn't even know, that I had done something wrong. And I don't think I got in trouble, but I can't remember, to tell you the truth. I might have, but I don't think I did. But then there was another incident where but that pushed me, see, and that made me realize, well, there's two sides to this. There's, I got to be careful that I don't get in trouble. All of a sudden I realized there's stakes involved. You can't just idly sign a piece of paper and think that it's okay. It was a wake-up call to some degree, but then I got in trouble because inadvertently, I didn't even mean to, but somehow there was like some big command, like a general or somebody, and I didn't salute him. Everybody else saluted him, and I didn't salute him, but I didn't mean not to salute him. It was just one of those things where I just didn't happen to do it. It was like, didn't, but not on purpose. And boy, I got called in on the carpet about that. I was like, whoa, I was getting called in for, they said, you're the same guy that was passing out that literature, and what's going on here, you're refusing to salute the generals now, and it's like, oh, sorry, oops, I didn't mean to, but they were kind of categorizing me, and in some ways, by doing that, I think it was kind of forcing me to see myself in a way that I really wasn't prepared to see myself as.